Hey guys, welcome back to the fanfic reread project. In this episode, we will be continuing our reread of my old Hunger Games fic, The Tribute from District 12, starting with Chapter 9. This is confusing, to say the least. I'm relieved that we don't have to do everything together anymore, though that was my own fault, but it's still very strange. What prompted this? And so suddenly, too. I mean, as much as I've hated the partners thing, it is useful since we'll be working together in the arena. Is he trying to take the title by himself? He didn't seem so keen on winning before training. In fact, he made himself seem downright useless. Maybe it was a trick, like what Joanna Mason did. But she didn't score an 8, and she didn't have the double victor rule. No matter, two can play that game. Fine. So what's first? Alright, so if you remember, last episode ended off with the reveal that Peeta wanted to be coached separately. I do have a question though. How is Peeta and Katniss being stuck pretending to like each other at all Katniss's fault? That line always confuses me because I'm not entirely sure what she's referring to there. Like, is she saying that them being forced to work together is her fault, or is she saying like she's had a miserable time of it and that's like her fault? I guess the second one makes more sense, but I'm still not sure. But whatever. Anyway, Haymitch takes Peeta for content, and I get to go with Effie to work on my presentation. We spend 4 hours working. She puts me in a long gown and tall shoes and has me practice walking. It's a pain, literally and figuratively. At home, I usually wear boots, and the few times I've gotten dressed up, I've worn my mother's flat shoes, and I've never worn a dress that's even grazed the floor. Too much fabric, too expensive. I try not to trip over the bottom by lifting it up, and I get yelled at for my trouble. "Not above the ankle," she says. Effie also corrects my posture when I'm sitting, forcing my shoulders back with her hands and constantly lifting my head. Eye contact, smiles, we cover everything. By lunch, I don't know what's more sore, my back, my neck, or my feet. "I've done the best that I can," Effie says. "Just remember, you want the audience to like you, Katniss?" I look at her, puzzled. "You don't think they will?" "Not if you just stare at them blankly. Try to emote a little. Fake it if you have to." I don't have to fake how annoyed I am right now. I step right out of my shoes and stalk out of the room. Peeta and Haymitch seem to be in a good mood when I get to the dining room. I can't decide whether this makes me feel better or not. I wonder if my session with Haymitch will be any better. It's not. When we sit down in the sitting room, he just looks at me for a while. I raise my eyebrows. Yes? "I'm trying to figure out what to do with you, how we should present you to the audience." Am I allowed to know Peeta's approach? Likeable. He has a sort of self-depreciating humor, and he's a good talker. I know this from experience. You, on the other hand, are quiet and actually kind of depressing, really. "I am not," I say defiantly. "Yes, you are. You hardly talk, and when you do, you're telling us bad news. I don't know who that girl in the chariot was, but I haven't seen her since then." Now I'm more annoyed. Depressing? I've come hundreds of miles to die on national television. I'm not exactly happy about it. "But you need to act like it," he says. "The sponsors don't want to sponsor someone who isn't going to try." Okay, look, I'm going to be the audience. Delight me. I'm trying to answer his questions in a way that'll make people like me, but I can't help it. I'm exhausted. We try what feels like 100 different angles and attitudes. I can't do arrogant. I lack the confidence. I'm not sly or cunning, really, or mysterious. Humble doesn't work either. My gushing lacks heart. The longer it goes on, the more sarcastic my answers are. "Well, you've got bite, I'll give you that," Haymitch says after a while, "but that might make you seem mean. That's better for the arena." He sighs. "I don't know what to do with you, sweetheart." I eat alone in my room that night. I can't stand to look at any of them. I find myself smashing the plates I ate off of in aggravation. When the red-headed Avox girl comes in to turn down the sheets, I'm sitting on the bed in tears. It's the first time I've cried since I've been here. "Just leave it," I say, but she doesn't. She goes into the bathroom, grabs a washcloth, and wipes the cuts on my hands clean. I help her clean up the mess on the floor. "I should have helped," I find myself saying. She shakes her head. "But I could have." She shakes her head again, points to her mouth, and then at me. I could have become an Avox, like her, she means. She's right. I would have ended up like her, or dead like the boy she was with. She turns down my bed and exits the room, giving me a bow before she walks through the door. I wish she could stay. Does anyone else get the feeling that Katniss has a tendency to over-explain things? A lot of times it'll be like what we just saw here. This is kind of a especially bad example, but like the girl points at herself and then points at Katniss. And I think it's pretty obvious what she means. But even barring that, there is a line right after it that says, she's right, I would have ended up like her or dead like the boy she was with. So what was the point of explaining what the gesture meant if the sentence afterward explained what the gesture meant? I don't know. It feels like there are multiple points here where Katniss will explain something that is already explained by like another line or something like that. I don't know if that's a carryover from the book or just me feeling like I had to write a lot of stuff for people to get it. I'm not entirely sure what the point of that is. But anyway. The first thing I see in the morning is Venia's hair, which startles me into wakefulness. Today are the interviews, and my prep team has me until they begin that night. I hope that Cinna will make me look so good that I'll appear more interesting than I actually am. They work on me until late into the afternoon. My skin glows and sparkles like gold dust. They paint tiny flames onto my nails and stick small red and orange jewels on my shoulders. My eyes are made to look bright and lively, my lashes thick and full, and a black line over my eyelids, like during the opening ceremony, but more dramatic, and my lips are glossy and red. Okay, that didn't need to all be in one sentence, my god. My hair is back in the style I had for the reaping, with thin gold ribbons woven in. You know what? Actually, I wanted to talk very briefly about like these assessments of Katniss, because for some reason, whenever I read this story and I hear Haymitch say that Katniss is boring and kind of depressing, I don't see what he means. I mean, I could see where Katniss is boring because she literally like does not speak to anyone all that often, and she has a tendency to like burst out at people. So you would think it would paint her more as like angry or like quick-tempered, but he says she's depressing. And I just don't see that at all. I'm not sure where that came from. And I feel like it's different from what he said in the book. I can't remember the details exactly, but I don't think that was the assessment that he gave in the book, or he just didn't use that word. So I'm wondering why I changed it. And I think this sticks out to me too, because when I read I won't get too into this because we'll talk about this when we finally get to read this. But in the edited version, when Haymitch gives his assessment of Katniss, I agree entirely. And I think that story does a good job of showing you why Haymitch says what he says about her, you know? In this one, I really don't get the vibe of like, or not the vibe, but I really don't understand like where his assessment exactly is coming from. But anyway. Cinna enters with something that I think is my dress. It's covered, so I'm not sure. Close your eyes, he says. I can feel the fabric around me as they pull it over my head. It's light, lighter than I expected. It feels tight, too. They sit me down, and I feel someone begin wrapping something around my feet, and when I stand up, I realize that they never put me in shoes. There's some adjusting, and then silence. You can open your eyes now. I don't recognize the girl in the mirror. My dress is form-fitting and fans out at the bottom like the plume of a bird's tail. It's a hearty red, orange enough to evoke flames and bring out the gold in my skin. I always wonder when she says that, does she mean the gold in her skin, like the gold coloring that they just put on it, or like the gold in her skin as in its actual color? Because she very specifically said, I thought, that she has an olive skin tone, so her undertone is green. But anyway. My feet and calves are wrapped in silky golden ribbons tied at the tops with bows that have deep red gems in the centers. My prep team is staring at me in awe. I feel elegant for the first time in my life. So this outfit is based off of the outfit they put Jennifer Lawrence in the movie, as opposed to the book outfit, which was this like big kind of like heavy dress covered in rhinestones that look like flames. I mean, there's movie inspiration sprinkled kind of throughout this, not to the same extent as in the edited version, but you can clearly see it here. Cinna dismisses them and has me walk around a bit. The dress is short enough in the front that I won't step on it, and I walk much better on my own 2 feet. It's much better than the towering shoes Effie had me in. So, already then? Cinna asks. I can tell he's been talking to Haymitch, that he knows I'm as interesting as a blank sheet of paper. So it says I can tell he's been talking to Cinna, which I don't know how I made that mistake, but I can tell he's been talking to Haymitch, that he knows I'm as interesting as a blank sheet of paper. See, where is that coming from? Like, actually, no, like, I did say the interesting bit, but Haymitch didn't say that, really. Effie was more the one who was saying, like, you want the audience to like you, and stuff like that, where Haymitch was just like, you're depressing, you know? Haymitch said he didn't know what to do with me. We tried everything, but we couldn't find an angle. Cinna ponders this for a minute. Why don't you just be yourself? Myself? Well, that won't work. I'm about as interesting as white paint. Well, I don't think so. Neither do the prep team. You've impressed the game makers, and the capital citizens can't keep your name out of their mouths. They admire your spirit. This comes as a surprise. I have spirit? I mean, I'm not as boring as white paint, really. I get an attitude sometimes, but that's usually only with Gale. Besides, I'm quote unquote saving that for the arena, whatever Hamish meant by that. It's pretty straightforward, hun, but whatever. Cinna takes my hand in his. When you answer the questions, imagine you're talking to one of your friends back home. Who would be your best friend? Madge, I answer immediately, but I wouldn't be telling her any of this stuff she knows already. Well, what about me? Would you think of me as a friend? So far, Cinna is the only person I've met here that I genuinely like. I think so, yes. I'll be sitting in the front with the other stylists. When they ask you a question, look for me and answer as honestly as possible. Even if what I think is horrible, he grins, especially if what you think is horrible. The rest of the team is at the elevator when I arrive. Peeta looks striking in all black with red accents. It's a relief not to be dressed identically for once. The interviews are conducted in a giant theater with seats stretching back farther than you can see. We'll all be waiting on a platform to the side of the main stage. The other tributes are already being lined up when we arrive backstage. I'll be second to last since the female tributes go first. We'll still be going last as usual. I wish I could go first. I hope that maybe there's someone less interesting than me, someone to set the bar low. Okay, didn't we just talk with Cinna and she said, like, I'm not really that boring? Like, whatever. I suddenly hear Hamish behind us. You're still a happy pair, so act like it. Well then. I thought we were dropping this when we started getting coached separately, but apparently not. Of course, the crowd doesn't know about that. We won't be doing much talking to each other tonight anyway. The theater is packed when we enter. It feels like everyone in the capital is here. The sweat and ribbons make my feet slick on the shiny floor of the stage. I make it to my seat without incident. Caesar Flickerman bounces onto the stage. He's been hosting the interviews for decades, and he hasn't seemed to age since the first time I've seen him. A lot of people in the capital look like that. It's a bit unsettling, really. His hair is dyed blue this year, the same color as his suit. He changes it every year. Last year he did bright red, and it was alarming. To his credit, he does always try to make the tributes look good. He can make the dullest response seem like a memorable, quotable one. It helps that he speaks the language of the districts and knows the different dialects. He tells a few jokes and then gets right down to business. The girl from District 1 flounces up on stage in a little pink number with a top made of a shiny rubbery-looking material that barely covers her chest. Her legs look a mile long, and her light blonde hair cascades over her tan shoulders. She doesn't even have to try. She oozes sex appeal. Her male partner doesn't disappoint either, with a level of charisma that feels almost infectious. Their mentors had no trouble picking angles for them. Again, the whole thing with the District 1 girl is supposed to be commentary on our culture, like, because Panem is set in America, it has a lot of the same, like, social issues that America has, despite it being so far in the future. Like, a 16 or 17-year-old girl dressing up to appear sexy to an audience that is primarily made up of adults. And that commentary kind of falls flat in a world like, well, I think the problem is that the other story that was supposed to take place on this planet didn't take place in the modern age, not at this point. So the commentary about, like, oh, we see the way that we have to over-sexualize teenagers by making them appear to be adult, it doesn't fall completely flat, but it doesn't work completely well either, because that worked differently in the A Song of Ice and Fire fanfic that was set there. Like, yes, you did have the problem of people treating, like, teenage girls like little women, but the over-sexualization of them, it just didn't happen that way, you know what I mean? Everyone seems to be playing up some angle this year. The boy from District 2 is hardened and cocky, but he seems to soften when talk turns to his partner. His counterpart is young for a career, but she doesn't play the child. She's fierce, and her tongue is sharp in the best way. The male tribute from District 4 has the translators hard at work. He's arrogant enough to bypass trying to drop the rough dialect of his home. The fox-faced girl impresses the crowd by speaking perfectly in the capital language, a feat for someone from District 5. Rue, the little girl from District 11, looks like a fairy in the gown she's been put in. Caesar's sweet with her, and the crowd is in silent awe at her ethereal beauty. When she's asked what she thinks her strength will be in the arena, she doesn't skip a beat. I'm very hard to catch, and if they can't catch me, they can't kill me, so don't count me out. I wouldn't in a million years, he answers back, and I can't help but agree. The male tribute from District 11 is a tower of a boy. His skin is darker than Rue's and his eyes are too. Why is that worth noting? Like, so far, like, I know, like, throughout the story, people's skin colors have been mentioned. There have been a lot of, like, tan people and Katniss and Gale and stuff like that. What bothers me is the fact that his dark skin, not that it's mentioned, but that it's mentioned specifically in relation to Rue's not as dark skin. And that just feels like it would be fine to drop that detail in isolation, but in this context, it's kind of weird, especially because this entire like paragraph is about how dark and sort of like mysterious and brooding he is. It's just not a good look. He kept to himself in training. I even caught Peeta watching him throw weights one day. The boy's a powerhouse. He even rejected an invitation from the careers to join their group. He's a powerhouse. Why did I write that again? He doesn't say much, only answering yes and no to Caesar's questions. He doesn't have to be charming. His size will guarantee him sponsors. See, you can't do that. Like, it's just bad. Next thing I know, Caesar is calling my name. I try to walk as gracefully as I can without slipping. I do slip as I'm sitting in my chair and swing my leg over the other into a cross-legged position. What? That's a really convoluted way to say that she crossed her legs to cover up her fall. A pretty good save if I do say so myself. I find myself looking out into the crowd as I sit down. There are so many people out there. Their bright wigs and clothes make them look like candies in a sweet dish. I only just realized that I've missed Caesar's first question. A what? I say, turning back to him. I didn't mean to be so blunt, but I'm not all there. I hear a few people in the audience laugh. At least they don't mind. I was saying, what has impressed you the most since you've arrived here in the capital? Be honest, I think to myself. Be honest. I find Cinna in the crowd and try to think of something that's made me happy here. The food, I finally answer. Especially the duck and orange noodles. With the rosemary sauce? Oh, I eat it by the bucketful. He turns to the audience, a look of mock horror on his face. It doesn't show, does it? They shout reassurance back at him. This is what I like about him. He tries to make you look good. He turns back to me. Now, Katniss, when you came out in the opening ceremonies, my heart actually stopped. What did you think of the costume? This answer comes a bit easier. You mean after I got over my fear of being burned alive? The audience laughs genuinely this time. That seems like a good place to start, Caesar says. I look to Cinna again. Well, I thought it was brilliant and that it was the most gorgeous costume I'd ever seen, and I couldn't believe I was wearing it. I still can't believe it. I can't believe I'm wearing this either. I mean, look at this. I lift up the bottom of my dress slightly to show the audience the gems on the bows. That gets more than a few oohs. I see Cinna make a small circular motion with his finger. Does he want me to spin for them? I stand from my chair, walk toward the front of the stage, and do a twirl. The bottom of my dress fans out and flames burst from it, just like the ones during the opening. It comes as a shock to me as well as the audience. I spin around and around, and the audience breaks out in cheers and applause. I'm dizzy when I stop, but I'm smiling and laughing for the first time since the opening. I give a small bow and move back to my seat. I could watch you do that all day, Caesar says. Am I right, ladies and gentlemen? The audience is cheering again. Now, how about that training score? Can we get a hint of what happened there? I look nervously at the game makers. All I can say is that I think it was a first. They nod and chuckle. You're killing us. Details, details. I look to the balcony again. I'm not supposed to talk about it, right? One of the game makers, a man with a beard shaped like waves, answers back. She's not, and gives Caesar a fake disapproving look before breaking into a huge grin. Caesar feigns defeat. Oh, all right, you win, Seneca. This time. The game makers are laughing heartily, and the audience with them. Let's go back, then, to the moment when they called your sister's name at the reaping. The crowd goes completely silent. Can you tell us about her? I look to Cinna, who gives me a small nod. Be honest, he's saying. Again, you don't have to explain her. Her name is Prim, and she's 12, and I love her more than anything in the world. What did she say to you after the reaping, he asks. Be honest. She told me that I have to win. And what did you say? I answer quietly. I told her I would try. Caesar squeezes my hand. And try you will. Well, it seems we're out of time. Best of luck to Katniss Everdeen, tribute from District 12. Alright, so before we go on, and try you will, well, it seems we're out of time. For some reason, these are separated into different paragraphs, but they're said by the same person. It's really strange because you can tell it's deliberate because And Try You Will has its own, like, it's not even like I accidentally pushed enter and then didn't put it back because I was, like, editing or something. Like, they have their own quotation marks and everything. I'm not entirely sure why that was a thing, but, anyway. I give a small bow and walk back to my seat. The applause continues even after I sit down. I hear Caesar call Peeta's name next. He has the crowd from the get-go, playing up the baker's son thing. Then he relays a story about the Capitol showers that has the theater shaking with laughter. Then Caesar asks him if he has a girlfriend back home. He shakes his head. Nah, it's not my thing. The audience has a fit of giggles, and even a few of the tributes laugh at this. I seem to have missed the joke. Caesar presses on. Are you sure? Peeta shifts in his seat. Well, I mean, yeah, there's this one girl. I've had a crush on her for a while now, but she probably didn't give me a second thought until the reaping. The audience eats it up. They love young love, and unrequited love, even better. Does she have someone else? Maybe. I wouldn't be surprised. They all love her. Well, look, you win these games, you go home, then it'll be impossible for her to say no. Well, I don't know if that'll work. Well, why not? She's not at home, you see. Well, not anymore. And that's the end of that chapter. Ooh, Peeta admits his love. Okay, so a problem here. Sure, them keeping up the charade that Peeta has, or doing the charade that Peeta has a crush on Katniss, and he's admitting it, and oh man, that's fine. However, right before that, Peeta says, not really my thing, when Caesar says, do you have a girlfriend? What does that mean then? And clearly, like, yeah, it's meant to sort of, like, show that he's putting on an act right now, but why would he admit that on stage? Like, because there's really only one way you can take that statement. So for him, it's kind of, like, interesting for him to, like, walk it back like that and be like, oh, well, no, and everyone just kind of is like, oh, yeah, whatever, sure. Again, I think that's another bit of, that could be read as another bit of commentary about, like, but this wasn't in the book. So again, it falls flat because, like, yes, Westeros is like a homophobic society, but that's Westeros. We don't know how these types of things are seen in different parts of Essos, really. Like, outside of the fact that the Roynish were okay with it. So, like, Peeta saying, oh, I'm gay, and then Caesar being like, but are you sure? Like, how do we know that that's how he would respond? Now, again, if this was the Hunger Games set on Earth, it would make us, like, slightly more sense, because people do that now, you know? And it's clearly, like, a comment, but in here, I'm not entirely sure, like, why this is even a thing. Furthermore, again, why would Peeta admit that on stage if he is then going to say, like, oh, well, you know, and do the whole charade with Katniss and the crush? Furthermore, throughout the story, we've seen hints that he actually does have a crush on Katniss. So what is, like, this suddenly comes out of nowhere and contradicts all of that. How am I supposed to take that? I don't even want to say, like, well, was he lying? Was he kidding? What is this supposed to mean? Because I know for a fact that it wasn't that deep, you know? So, like, why, if I wanted to add that in, did I not delete the other stuff as I went along? Did I not realize that it was part of the crush thing? It's confusing. But anyway, so that chapter was really long. Jesus Christ. I was not expecting that chapter to be that long. It was fine though. Up until that last, like, little bit, it was fine. I mean, I mentioned all the stuff I had problems with. There were some confusing things throughout, but outside of that, the rest of it was passable, you know? So moving on, at that point, we get a page that says 2. So we're moving on to part 2. So now we are at chapter 1 of part 2. The crowd makes an O sound. The cameras are all trained on Peeta's face, but I can't read his expression. Then the cameras are on me, the look of confusion on my face for everyone to see until I duck my head down. It's me. Of course it's me. Who the fuck else would he be talking about? Like, Katniss. That is strange luck, isn't it? Caesar says. She didn't know? Not until now. The audience is screaming now. Peeta gives a small smile. I look up for a short second and see the cameras are on me again. I can see the blush spreading on my cheeks. Some of the other tributes are looking at me now. I drop my head again. I really do not want to play this game. Wouldn't it be nice to get Katniss out here for a reaction? The roar of the crowd is deafening. Unfortunately, rules are rules. I'm sure the audience will be rooting for the both of you. Best of luck to Peeta Malak, tribute from District 12. The audience applauds long after Peta is back in his seat. I know the cameras are on us now. I don't want to look, but we have to stand for the anthem. The two of us are on all the screens. The couple from District 12, the ones who got thrown into the arena together by chance, the two that only have each other. Right. When the anthem ends, we file off stage and into the backstage area. I hasten my pace to get away from Peta and duck into the elevator door farthest from him. I don't want to talk to him, not right now. I press myself into the corner to avoid whoever comes in behind me. All I know is that there are 6 other people there. My eyes are focused on the floor. I've got no interest in seeing who it is. Until I hear one of them speak. Do you think he's in love with her? The voice is a whisper, but the accent is unmistakable. The rough words make her soft tones sound harsh. It's the girl from District 4. Probably. You see the way he follows her around? He's like a dog looking for table scraps. I think that was the boy from District 1. He's got a twinge of the capital accent, but not enough to make him sound silly. They teach the people the language in the career districts. The tributes almost always show off with it during the interviews. The high-pitched laugh I hear next definitely belongs to his female companion. She's got a shrill voice, like the screech of a whistle. The accent just makes it worse. They all love her, remember? No. I don't know what they see in her, she continues. The way she was spinning around on stage, she looked like a child. That gets them laughing. I can hear her trilling laugh above the rest of them. It irks me. They're still laughing when the District 1 pair exits the elevator. It dies down considerably once the doors close, though. Someone lets out a long sigh. More laughter follows. Then the girl from District 4 whispers again. She talks so much. Then I hear that big, brutal boy speak. His deep voice is jarring compared to the others. We'll see how much she talks in the arena. The doors open again, this time to District 2's floor. I venture a look up and lock eyes with the District 2 girl. I can see the laughter blooming on her face as the doors close. Somehow, by sheer luck, the last two didn't notice that. They speak in hushed tones until the elevator stops at their floor. They don't notice me as they leave either. I don't even bother to move myself from the corner when I'm alone. I'm too aggravated to feel relieved. I don't want everyone talking about me anymore. Or at the very least, I don't want to know when it's happening. But no, now everyone across the nation is talking about us. Pete is in the hallway when I exit the elevator car. Something just comes over me when I see him. I slam him up against the wall. What was that out there? What are you doing? What are you doing? I can feel someone pulling me away. It's Hamish. What the hell is going on? Effie's here now, too. You know fighting is against the rules, right? I whip around to the both of them. I don't give a damn about the rules. He had no right. She's just worried about her boyfriend, Peter sneers while rubbing his neck. Damn straight I am. You knew, and you did it anyway. Hamish grabs me by the shoulders. Look, he made you desirable. I don't need someone to make me desirable. Like hell you don't. To hear him tell it, the boys are all over you back home. They think you're a heartbreaker. But I already have someone, I hiss at him. And the sponsors don't know that. So if you want to see him again, I suggest you buck up and play along. He turns and walks into the living room. I stomp off to my room, bumping Peter with my shoulder as I go. I plop down on my bed. I don't know what happened to me out there. I don't think I've ever been that mad before. But he knew, and he had the nerve to be upset. All right. So, again, this exchange kind of doesn't make sense. If we're going along the assumption that the line that I wrote in where Peter's like, it's not really my thing, is 100% like an admission of him not actually being into girls, then him sneering about Gail is not like him being like, oh, she doesn't care about her boyfriend. It should be read more as him being like, oh, she just doesn't care. Like, it's like sneering, but not in the way where he's like, oh yeah, she only cares about her guy friend. It's more along the lines of, I am making like bigger moves that matter more than our personal lives, and this dumb this dumb is up here talking about, oh, my boyfriend, which would be nice foreshadowing. But it's hard to tell what exactly is supposed to be going on here, if that's just more of the crush stuff seeping in, or if it's meant to be read the other way. I genuinely don't know. So anyway, somehow this is both better and worse. On one hand, the capital citizens adore us and will get more sponsors. They've fallen for the act, the ultimate double team. Hell, the other tributes have fallen for it as well. But what about Peta asking to be coached alone yesterday? Are we still working together? Because if not, then this whole thing was for naught. Or maybe that's been Peta's plan all along. use us appearing together to get the capital citizens to like us. And then, once the games begin, I'll get killed, and then he can use the death of his crush to garner more sympathy and more sponsors. Or maybe he'll wait until I'm injured and then mercy kill me for the same results. Or maybe he'll just do it himself and claim he was overcome with a bloodlust he couldn't control. It'd be a good show. And that's all they want, really. A good show. This boy is trying to deliver me to my grave. Alright, Katniss had me up until the bloodlust one. Like, the other two he could get away with and actually kind of makes sense. But the third one, like, if he killed her, it would make a good show, but he wouldn't get sponsors. Most likely, it would probably end up in everybody in the Capitol hoping for him to get offed for what he did to Katniss. Effie's voice tells me that there's dinner. I don't bother taking off my dress. It'll be too much of a hassle. Everyone else is at the table already when I arrive. The adults talk about the interviews, how Peeta brought down the house with his quote-unquote confession, and how I look like a princess. I'm glad they think so highly of me, but I don't feel so confident anymore. On stage, I felt invincible, like everyone loved me, but now it seems silly, like a little girl playing dress-up, like a child. I realize that Peeta has given me another edge. On my own, I seem shallow and simple, but now Peeta is supposedly in love with me, so there must be more to me. And I imagine it's given Haymitch more material to work with. Katniss Everdeen, the girl on fire, the girl with the 11, and now the heartbreaker. The thought of that depresses me, for some reason. After we finish eating, we move to the sitting room to watch the replay. I voice my concerns about my interview, but everyone assures me that I'm endearing. I'm not completely convinced, but at least I look like I was having fun. Peeta is actually charming and gives a winning performance as my lovelord partner. And I was right. My confused look plays more like shock, and the blushing closes the deal. Cinna made me beautiful, Peeta made me desirable. Our underdog status makes us both inspiring and tragic. We're unforgettable, by all accounts. I turn to thank Peeta, at least for that, but he's not here. It occurs to me that he wasn't at dinner either. Did I upset him so much that he wouldn't eat? No, he's not that emotional. I can't guess why he'd skip, and I don't bother to. I'm still upset with him. Once the replay is over, an eerie hush falls over the room. This is the last time we'll all be together like this. We leave at dawn for the arena. Before I leave, Effie takes me by the hands and thanks me for being the best tribute she's ever sponsored. Then she tearfully adds, "Maybe they'll actually promote me to a decent district next year." She kisses me on the cheek and then skitters out of the room before the tears can ruin her eye makeup while I can still see, I presume. The first thing I do when I get back to my room is take a shower. I scrub all the gold dust from my body and the makeup from my face. I'm tired of being a sultry, beautiful heartbreaker. I just want to be myself again. Afterwards, I throw on a simple nightshirt and climb in the bed. Sleep doesn't come easily like I thought it would. In fact, it doesn't come at all. My mind wanders to Gale. I can't help but wonder what he thought. I wish I could tell him that it was an act. But he must know. Surely he understands that it's just a survival tactic. Okay, see this? Gale is literally her boyfriend, and Katniss didn't have any kind of say in this. Like, I mean, Peeta literally plays it off like he was just admitting it now and she never knew about this, which is true, even though it is all an act. So, if Gale is mad at her when she comes home, that's a Gale problem. It's not a Katniss problem, you know? But, anyway. I find myself thinking about the morning of the reaping, when he said we should run away. We should have done it, right then and there. I'm cursing myself shooting down the idea so quickly. We'd constantly be on the run, but that doesn't matter. Anything is better than this. Better than knowing people are betting on my life. Better than knowing that the only reason anyone is interested in me is because other people have made me interesting and likable, and that the only thing I've earned on my own was my training score. 3 hours later and my mind is still reeling. I get out of bed and start pacing. It's not good enough. I need out. I pad towards the stairway to the roof. I don't even have to turn the knob. It's already open. I wonder who could be up here. What am I saying? It's Peeta. I doubt that any of the other tributes would venture up here, or if they're even allowed. When I step out of the door, I see him there, like a shadow against the vibrant lights of the city. I don't want to speak to him, but I'm here now, and I can't go back to my room. I might start throwing flatware again. It's decided. I'm staying. I start towards the garden, but apparently Peeta's heard the door. You should be getting some rest. What about you? He's still at the railing, looking at the streets below. I didn't want to miss the party. It's for us, after all. I look over the side for myself. The streets are filled with people, so many that they look like a mush of bright colors moving along to loud music. Are they wearing costumes? I ask. He ignores my question and responds with another. Couldn't sleep either? I shake my head. I couldn't tune out my mind. Thinking about your family? Yeah, I lie. And about tomorrow. My response is met with silence. I finally get a good look at him. I can tell why he couldn't sleep. He's jittery. His foot taps the ground as if he's impatient, and his arms shake against the railing we're both leaning on. It's like a live wire has been placed on his skin. His eyes stay trained on the street below. The quiet between us is louder than the music from the streets. I curse him for being so distant. It's unbearable. You weren't at dinner, I venture. He's silent. I don't know why I'm still trying to make conversation, but I continue on. You'll need the energy tomorrow. It doesn't matter, Katniss, he says, turning to me. I have no chance of winning anyway. That's no way to be thinking. Why not? It's true. We've been through this. Peeta, you have as good a chance as the rest of them. The best I can do is hope not to disgrace myself, and what? He hesitates. I just want to die as myself. Does that make any sense? I don't want to change when I get in there into some kind of monster. I'm not sure I understand. How can he die as anyone but himself? Do you mean that you won't kill anybody? No, I'm sure when I get in there I'll kill just like everyone else. I just don't. I want the Capitol to know that I'm not just a pawn, that I'm more than just a piece in their games. I don't know what to say. We're all pieces in their game, every single one of us. He's been playing it this whole time, making all the right moves to get himself sponsors, to get me sponsors. But now he suddenly doesn't want to play anymore? And after his biggest move, too. What happened? That's just the way it is, though, I say. But it doesn't have to be. There's still me, and there's still you. Don't you see? I mean, I guess, but Peeta, who cares? I do, he says, frustrated. It's all I'm allowed to care about anymore. You can care about staying alive. He looks at me as if the very idea of him living through the games is ridiculous. You can't live if you're always thinking about dying. He just sighs. Thanks for the tip, sweetheart. He would use that as a taunt. So I feel like if you were going along with this narrative of Peeta pulling off this stunt despite being gay, that little part where he's like, I don't want to be a part of the games, and the fact that it very suddenly comes on after this, I think this context is still here in the book too. But you really could have played with that. Like Peeta sacrificing his own happiness and his own desires to survive in the games, and then in the process risking blowing up Katniss's relationship with her man just so they can get through this alive. That's pretty fucking deep. And you really could have done something with like the sacrifices that he's doing there and the frustration that builds because of that. And then like the fact that Katniss just doesn't seem to get it because she is not in on the fact that he's just acting. I feel like that could have worked really well, but again, I really don't think I was going for that. It wasn't supposed to be that deep. I was just like, what if Peeta liked a boy and that boy was also in the Hunger Games? I sometimes wonder where that was supposed to go. Now, to be fair, gay people exist. We don't need to be written in the stories just because it's part of the plot. But if you're going to have it play like and him say that when he did, and then he's like skipping and like all of these little hints and clues, then it should go somewhere in the story. This is not just a character who happens to be gay. You're bringing it into the plot now. So you need to do something with that. And I don't think I was going to do something with that. It's unfortunate. We stand there in silence for a few minutes. Me, angry at his petulance. Him, I don't even know. And that makes me mad too. And then all those feelings I felt earlier come back too. I'm smoldering, irritated, and I want to make him feel the same. Oh, God. How did you get those? Get what? He sounds dazed, distracted. Those. I point to a bunch of angry red marks peeking out from the waist of his pants. He pulls his shirt down over it. It's nothing, he grumbles. Doesn't look like nothing. He narrows his eyes. Don't worry about it. Have you been fighting? He looks at me, aggravated, but I keep going. Fighting with the other tributes is against the rules. I thought you didn't give a damn about the rules, Katniss. I don't really, and I'm being horrible, but I can't find it anywhere inside me to care. It doesn't matter. I wasn't fighting. Well, then where what, Katniss? Where were you at dinner? I wasn't hungry. I can't help but feel like he's lying. Well, yeah. He turns toward the door. Good night, Katniss. And he leaves the roof before I can ask him anything else. I drift in and out of consciousness for the rest of the night, still thinking about the day to come. Well, at least I know that Peeta won't kill me. Are you sure about that now? I don't know that for sure, but I can make a good bet based on what he was saying. I can't count on him to help me in the arena, though. Not after tonight. That's partially my own fault, though. Okay, hold on. Partially? That line always fucking killed me because it's like, oh, well, that's partially my fault. When we literally just watched her basically blow up that alliance on the roof instead of mending it, like she could have, or just kind of leaving things the way that they were. But it's partially her fault. I guess I understand why he's so afraid of turning into a monster. It happened before, about 10 years ago. He was one of the top contenders for that year. He was charismatic, had a ton of personality, and he wasn't even a career. He was from District 6, and he didn't join their pack. Everyone was betting on him to win, but about 5 or 6 days into it, he lost it. He started to eat the tributes he killed. They had to stun him to remove the bodies. It didn't go over well with the capital citizens, but he was so brutal and powerful that he made it all the way to the end. They killed him before he could win, though. A branch fell through his chest just after he killed the last career tribute. They tried to make it look like an accident, but it was too convenient. And that they'd removed the double victor rule a few years before. The only person left was his female counterpart. I can't imagine what he would have done to her. She was tiny. I can't really imagine PETA going that bad, though. He seems like he has a stable mind. I hope. Maybe I should have been nicer or something. It doesn't really matter, though. He's been setting himself up for failure since the first day of training when he was so insistent on making me seem better than him. I guess he thinks I'm his best bet at his family getting something better in life. I wish I could feel the same. He's so worried about his legacy. There's no way he'll live past the first 3 days. Hopefully he'll get what he wants. In the morning, I'm greeted by an outfit. A simple black shirt, tawny pants, and leather boots. I like it. They'd make good hunting clothes. Haymitch is at the elevator waiting for me. When we get to the ground floor, there's a hovercraft waiting. I finally say something. Any last words of advice? When the gong sounds, get the hell out of there. The bloodbath isn't worth it. Just put some distance between you and the others and find a source of water. And after that, stay alive, sweetheart. Just like you said on the train. I just nod. There's nothing more to be said. The other tributes are already there. PETA too. A woman carrying a glowing syringe comes toward me. This is just a tracking device. The stiller you are, the easier it'll go in. It hurts, but it's nothing bad. Nothing worse than I've felt before. None of us speak on the way there. An hour and a half of tense silence. 2 peacekeepers lead me to the launch room once we arrive. Senna is there waiting for me. He helps me into a thin jacket. The material is designed to reflect body heat. Expect some chilly nights. He pulls the Mockingjay pin from his pocket. Where'd you get that? Off of your outfit on the train. It's your token, right? I'd totally forgotten about it. It just barely made it through inspection, he says as he fastens it to my shirt. They thought it could be used as a weapon. I realize there's food in the corner and rush toward it. I stuff myself, or at least I think I do. I can't taste any of it. I don't feel it in my stomach. I'm too nervous. So I sit with Cinna until they make the announcement. It's time for launch. He leads me over to a glass cylinder. Katniss, I'm not allowed to bet, but if I could, I'd bet on you. I manage a smile, despite the terror growing inside me. Thank you. Then he taps my chin. Keep your head high. The floor of the launch room begins to sink. No, I'm rising. Into darkness, and then into blinding sunlight. Then, a booming voice. Let the 74th Annual Hunger Games begin. And that's the end of that chapter. And that is actually where I'm going to end this episode because both of these chapters were really fucking long. So, that chapter was fun. I don't have any strong feelings for or against it. It works for what it is. It does what it needs to do. Yeah, like there were a few little weird tidbits. This entire thing with PETA is kind of like weird because it feels like I just kind of threw it on the story without thinking of the implications and consequences instead of actually working it in. But this is kind of the issue with the story. Like I mentioned, I don't know if it was last episode or not, but when I did the story, I literally just jumped right into it. I didn't have an outline or anything because I didn't decide to do NaNoWriMo until like maybe at most a week before it was supposed to start. So I did not have a lot of time to plan, and I spent the days leading up to it. I think I actually decided like 2 or 3 days before, but I spent those days just practicing writing because I literally hadn't done fiction writing in years. So I just kind of went into it with a vague idea of what I wanted out of this fanfic and the book. And I just kind of like wrote flying by the seat of my pants, paraphrasing the book and adding in things that I wanted. That's why some of the changes don't feel like they're well integrated. While there are a few things that do work slightly better, like the fact that it's set on Planetos, outside of a few clunky things that come later, and then like the whole Raven thing I mentioned way back in the episode 2 when I read chapters 3 and 4 and 5. Outside of those things, most of the mentions that it takes place on Planetos are done pretty well. You definitely get the feeling that this is like a person who lives here. You can get a sense of the geography if you know your stuff. It's not too intrusive. It works, but that's also something that doesn't like affect the plot. So I think that's why that works super well. Whereas some of the other stuff was just kind of like, I don't know. And I think it does have to do with the fact that I didn't get a chance to plan this out the way that I wanted to. But yeah, and I think it's showing the most in these chapters, but let's see how things go when we go into the games in those. So next episode is chapter 2 and the first proper chapter of the games. Well, chapter 2 of part 2 and the first proper chapter of the games. So if you like this video, like it on the YouTubes, subscribe to the channel, watch other videos. You can catch up on this and watch some of the other stuff I have scattered around. And I will see you next episode. Bye!